Now, there are now so few white working-class boys applying to university that the government minister in charge of higher education says they need to be treated like ethnic minorities. Conservative Minister David Willits says universities need to do more to admit less well-off white boys. They've retorted that they can't solve the problem on their own. Our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, reports.
White, working class and working his way through university. For 18-year-old Ed, a place at Sheffield, one of the prestigious Russell Group universities, was hard won. Studying at a tough London comprehensive, struggling to get good grades and fighting low expectations.
Like a lot of people, they never apply for Russell Group unis in our school because they don't, even if they have like decently good grades, they don't think it's like the sort of place for them.
Ed was lucky. Supported by an educational charity for disadvantaged children, he was given free one-to-one tuition and help with his university application. But even now, he still feels people like him are in the minority at universities.
I think obviously if you're from a better off background, you have a much more more likely to go to top uni. Right.
And what do you think about that?
I suppose it's not fair.
More women than ever are applying for university. But it's the number of white working-class boys causing the most concern. Research shows boys from other ethnic groups are much more likely to go to university. So now the government wants disadvantaged white boys to be treated in the same way as ethnic minorities when it comes to higher education.
We can't afford the waste of talent. If there are able people out there who really could benefit from going to university, I want them to have that opportunity.
Universities by law retain the right to decide which students to admit, and the Office for Fair Access to University Education doesn't set targets for any particular group of students. They seem surprised by today's focus on white working class boys, saying that they're just one of many groups individual universities may decide are in need of extra help. Former teacher Alex Kelly runs the charity which helped Ed get into university.
I don't really think that we should be separating out ethnicities for different kids from different ethnic backgrounds for different kinds of help. What we need to be doing is working out which schools have got the worst track record in terms of getting their kids into good universities, and then working out what support is useful for all the students in that school.
The sort of extra help Alex's organisation gave Ed is exactly what the government wants universities to do more of. But critics pose this question: can focusing in on any one group ever be fair to everyone else?
Well, to discuss all of that, I'm joined now by Zita Holborn from the campaign group Black Activists Rising Against Cuts and by the leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage. Well, Zita Holborn first, do you accept that when it comes to going to university, white working-class boys are now more disadvantaged than their ethnic minority counterparts?
Well, good evening. I don't believe that they're more disadvantaged. I definitely believe that they are disadvantaged. The tripling of tuition fees, having tuition fees at all, is definitely going to impact on the poorest and most deprived, meaning that they can't access university education at all. However, when it comes to black students are not just facing class discrimination and poverty as a barrier, they're also facing race discrimination. So there's a double impact on them.
Nigel Farage.
I don't think it's helpful to divide up between black and white. The fact is that children that are coming from poorer families, chiefly from the big urban centres in this country, are through the state education system not getting the opportunities in many cases to go to university. And I think the biggest...
But who's more discriminated against?
I don't think that's helpful to do that. I think what we should do is examine the fact that the 7% of boys and girls that go to independent schools now absolutely dominate university applications. We have social mobility in this country which is lower than it was 50 years ago. And what I would say is the biggest single mistake that we've made here is to abolish what we used to call the grammar schools, namely selective education, which would give black and white children with high IQs coming from poor parts of big urban centres the opportunity to achieve their best.
Leave grammar schools aside for a minute. Zita Holborn, do you support the kind of positive discrimination that the Minister is talking about? You don't think that's unfair to middle-class girls, for example?
I don't think it's unfair to middle-class girls to say that you should address any underrepresentation of any group of student, whoever they are. What the government should be addressing, however, is the poverty, the barriers in the education system, the fact that black people are more likely to live in deprived and poor areas, then they're less likely to have access to that university education, have poorer prospects, and there is a disproportionate impact. What the government should be doing is stopping the tripling of tuition fees, scrapping tuition fees altogether, and addressing all the issues of poverty that they're creating, the cuts to benefits, to jobs, to pensions,
I don't disagree.
the frozen pay.
I don't disagree that tuition fees and £27,000 a year is putting off people from poorer backgrounds. I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. But let's just remember this. You know, the top universities, the Russell Group of universities, are some of the world's leading universities, and they want to stay that way. And if government goes on imposing upon them positive discrimination and quotas, actually what will happen is they'll all break away and become independent.
But they're not taking enough working-class kids, that's the problem.
Well, but the point about these universities is they want to take on the academically best students, regardless of where they've come from.
Because of race discrimination, there's more black students in London Metropolitan University than there are in the whole Russell Group put together. So that shows you where the discrimination lies.
If we had selective schools in London, then regardless of whether we're black, white or Asian, it wouldn't matter. The children with the top IQs would go to those schools.
Well, it comes down
to
poverty and discrimination that people face in society.
Discrimination would not be a part of this.
Nigel Farage, let Zita Holborn answer that point. Are selective schools the answer?
No, I don't think they're the answer. What's the answer is creating growth, creating jobs, so that the families and the parents of these students have an income coming in. It's a huge barrier and a huge put-off to know that you're going to start your working career with a huge debt hanging over your head. And for some students, potential students, that then is not an option for them. They have to go and look for work. However, when you look at unemployment of young people, there's over 1 million young people unemployed. 1 in 2 young black people are unemployed. So that underrepresentation needs to be addressed, as well as the overall issue of unemployment and access.
The gap here is vast. I mean, the figures are astonishing. That the 5 leading independent schools have more students at Oxford and Cambridge than 2,000 comprehensives in the poorest parts of our cities. This gap is enormous, and the only way we're going to bridge this gap is to give children with high IQs, regardless of their racial background, the opportunity to get to the best universities, and we're letting them down very, very badly.
But the middle classes would still get an advantage from that, because they're able to get tuition for their kids to get into these grammar schools, aren't they? Well,
I mean, you know, that may be true, but at the moment, we're now down to 164 grammar schools across the entire country. There are vast areas, urban and rural too, where this opportunity does not exist, and it's those parents who pay for their children to go to those 7% of independent places that have got a massive advantage.
Let me just ask you a political point. Why do you think a Tory minister is saying this?
I really don't know. I think they're all over the place.
Are they worried about you?
With education? Well, they are worried about us.
White working class votes?
I mean, what they do know is a lot of people vote for UKIP because we believe in grammar schools and we believe in opportunity for poorer people. And perhaps he's trying, through positive discrimination, to deal with that, but it's the wrong answer.
How's it going attracting those Tory MPs you said you were going to get to defend?
Well, let's wait for David Cameron's big speech. It's been a long wait. Let's see what he has to say.
Nigel Farage, Zita Holborn, thank you very much for coming in.